Hi there. In this segment, I want to talk about Black excellence. Well, not in the way that a lot of Americans think, but I'm going to talk about all of the Black people who were Muslims or like made a great impact in our society. And this is a spiritual journey, so everything I talk about is from a spiritual perspective. I am not going to talk about how everybody obeys the man-made laws. That's not me. Anyone who follows the man-made laws way too deep is not with God. They're not with God. Even if they say, "Oh, I follow these laws," but no, there is something you are lacking. You may not see it, but it's there. So every story I tell you that had anything to do with humanity is for a spiritual reason. I I really dislike most of the human population. But my whole entire thing about this segment is going to be about, I'm sorry, nothing is funny. I laugh when I'm nervous. The whole segment is going to be about great, impactful people in Islam, especially when it comes to Black African Americans or Black Africans, Black everywhere. I'm pro Black. That's what I'm going to talk about. And again, I'm going to speak on these things for a reason. I have a goal and a plan set. So in these segments, please listen from a spiritual standpoint and feelings. Life is about feelings, your inner self. If you're not listening to understand from that human being's perspective, don't listen to me at all. If you're not listening to understand their emotion, their struggle, don't listen to any of my segments, because this is not about, oh, this is what that person did. Okay, this is not about that. This is about everybody getting closer to God, because we're getting nearer and nearer to the end. And I want to make sure that a lot of people can be able to find themselves and find God. Because without God, you're not going to make it anywhere. With that being said, let me stop talking, because sometimes I feel like I just go on and on about nonsense. But this is not about nonsense. So the first story I'm going to talk about is Mansa Musa. And at first I was like wondering why his story wasn't really told as much. I don't even remember what age I heard of his name. I heard about his name, but I never, like, I wasn't really awake. Like, I was still asleep and in the system and just moving around in the world without zero knowledge that it could possibly be fake. I don't know. I was too conditioned to not even be like too woke. But every now and then, like, his name will pop out in my head. It would be like Mansa Musa, and I'd be like, what about him? And then I would tell myself something about him having money, but no history would really get into my head about him, really. So today's first story is gonna be about Mansa Musa. With that being said, most of the things that I'm sharing, I have jotted down from other creators that I was listening to, and I love the information they were providing, and they fit, and I understand them. And because I understand them perfectly how they said it, I have copied down what they have said. So with that being said, not all things I say are my words, but I do like the history of how they tell it. And no, I did not take the information from some random person, but rather from like a historian or a YouTube channel with a history, like a history teacher, or, Wikipedia, the famous. That's where I got most of my information from. And then an African channel on TikTok was talking about him, so I got some information from there. So I kind of like picked through information that I wanted to share with you, and I hope you like it. And this is just my commentary on Mansa Musa. So to begin, Mansa Musa was the king of Mali. He's one of the richest black men in history, Musa was also a Muslim. He was born during the 13th century. He had a wife. Her name was Inari. When he ruled Mali, the country was full of gold, salt, and ivory. Also, during this time, white Europeans were suffering from the Black Death, the plague. Imagine that. I did not know that. I learned about the Black Death, but I don't remember much about Mansa Musa. I'm sure they taught it, but, probably wasn't paying attention. But you would learn, okay, so white people's history sticks to you more than black people's history, which is beyond weird. I'm going to figure out why that happens. With that being said, meanwhile, King Musa was building his empire from mosques where every Muslim could peacefully pray to Muslim universities where his people could learn Islam and enjoy lectures of how Islam, came about. I have a speech impediment. I'm sorry. I just meant, his people could learn Islam, enjoy the lectures of how Islam came about. Everywhere he went, when he traveled, he gave away his wealth. Any other black brothers and sisters he came across, he introduced Islam to them and helped to build the surrounding cities. So there's nowhere where he went where he did not help. King Musa also bankrupted the Egypt economy. He was very compassionate. He canceled the economy by giving the poor gold and making nearly everyone feel equal to one another. That led to Egypt no longer making profit. The Quran teaches us that we will be tested mostly from our, intentions, because you can't hide that from Allah. When Allah makes you rich, He wants to see how you would distribute it within your community. So not only do you get credit here on earth, you also get better things in the hereafter. From my knowledge, black people are the most compassionate. They feel for others, but Europeans mostly, they love to feel superior to one another. There's no way of saying that's not true. That is absolutely true. Every good thing they do for each other, behind it is some evil deed. They're always hiding something from one another. But anyways, yes, I'm aware of a few who have learned to be human, but back then, all of them were terrible to each other and other nations. If you look at Palestinians, Native Americans, and other nations, they all say, what about us, when they are being, oppressed? While Europeans only care about materialistic things and theft. They don't care about no one else's feelings. But when these poor people get, oppressed, they're like, what about us? How do you not care about us? What is wrong with you? And that speaks volumes. If you know, you know. Every nation knows that the earth is alive. Every spiritual person knows the earth is alive. The Native Americans never read the Quran, but they know the trees are alive, the rocks, everything is alive. Everything can witness what's going on. Islam, the Quran teaches you that. Literally, God says everything in the universe bows down to me. Everything moves for me. And every spiritual being that is alive knows its creator or tries to look for its creator. If you go to an unknown location where they don't know about Christianity or Muslim, those people over there They are yearning to learn about the creator of the universe. Even if they worship a rock, a part of them wants to know about the creator of the universe. They know there is something bigger than them. They know life isn't just looking at each other, but rather who created us, how did we come here? Like, you get me? But anyways. But evil people had to scientifically prove it first. They even become atheists. They refuse to believe that God created all the heavens and the earth. Some convert after they find proof. Some are just, I don't know, they got lost in the system that they helped create. And they're just there. Evil people don't believe in God. They have to go look for God. Even when all of the signs are provided for them right there, they're not gonna believe in nothing. But anyways, I digress. That's how you should know who God had favored to come to Islam and who challenges God. When you challenge God, He makes life extremely hard for you. But when you find Him, the world bows down to you. Everything comes to you. So with Mansa Musa, he had the world in the palm of his hands. Everything was happening for him. Everywhere he went, he shared his wealth. He loved his people. He sent them out to go explore the world. Like, he had such a great heart to build an empire. That is a beautiful soul. And he was black. I mean to that. Anyways, that's the lesson for today. Bye. Hello. Today's segment is going to be about Omar ibn Said. Omar ibn Said. Ibn Said meaning son of Said. He was a Fatu Torah scholar. His exact date of birth, as many other black men, is uncertain because, he was took from his own country. It was estimated, his date of birth was estimated to be around 1770 based on his own account. He was also born into a wealthy family in the region of Fatu Torah near Senegal. 50 years before his birth, the first Islamic uprising began in West Africa, which was reported by local Muslims and Muslim traders. Between 1769 and 1776, the Muslims overthrew the empire of Great Fulo. Omar was a Fula. Today, it's still the largest ethnic group in West Africa that speak the language called Fulani. The Fula people were the first to convert to Islam in large numbers in West Africa. During the childhood of Omar, the Islamic leaders in his region banned trading of slaves in the Senegal River. They came to an agreement with the French to stop trading Muslim slaves. Omar sought knowledge for 25 years. He became a scholar by learning things like mathematics, astronomy, and theology. Omar learned trade, and he also went to Mecca and learned to do Hajj against the infidels. By the way, Hajj is just going around preaching about Islam respectfully, peacefully. It does not mean violence at all. A lot of people tend to assume it's violence, and it's really not. A big army came and took him and sold him to Christians. And as he claimed, they took him to the sea, into the hands of Christian men who bought him and walked him to the ship. The ship that took him was the Heart of Oak. About 109 have died on that ship, as he claimed in his journal. He was very educated and wrote in a language his captors did not know. Omar was sold to a small evil man in South Carolina called Johnson. Soon Omar escaped and then he was captured again, and he was held in a rice plantation for about 2 years. Before escaping again in 1910, he was again captured by a white man who hunts for escaped slaves, taking them to another location in North Carolina. He was held there 16 days and nights. He filled the room with petitions to be released in Arabic. He eventually was resold into slavery. The first man to buy him was called Mitchell. He asked him to walk to Charleston. So he said, no. I ain't going over there. I'm not walking over there. So instead, he went with Bob Munford. Bob's daughter offered him another location in North Carolina, and he agreed. He praised the Owens because he believed they were righteous and didn't beat him, or call him bad names, or have him in hunger or naked to work, because he was a very small, ill man. Now, I really wanted to talk about this part real quick. Because he had faith in God, he had strongly believed in God, not only did he escape, God made sure he was not murdered. God made sure that he was sold into a family that took care of him. And God is aware of his illness. God made sure that he was in a home where they didn't hassle him. God clothed him so that he wasn't naked. God made sure that he wasn't beaten because he had his Islamic faith in his heart. He had Allah with him, and he refused to let that go. If you understand where I'm coming from. And also God made sure he was with people that didn't beat him, because he had his faith above all else. In 1819, John Lewis Taylor, the first Chief Justice for North Carolina Supreme Court, sent a letter to Francis Scott. This letter was written in Arabic, and they didn't understand it because, Omar wrote that in Arabic because he learned school in that way. The writer, Scott Key, was the writer of the Star-Spangled Banner. Taylor hoped that Key would be able to find the translation of the letter written in Arabic. He had written about, Omar had written about going home and his home called Africa. Through the text of the letters, he writes verses of the Quran. The Owens end up giving him a copy of the Bible that they obtained from Scott Key in Arabic, mind you. Instead of just, giving him a Quran or something, they gave him a Bible instead. He eventually converted to Christianity in 1820 and got baptized. Even though he was Christian, he still quoted Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he still quoted the Quran, even though he was a Christian. He converted to Christianity because it benefited him into being free. So basically, he kind of used them so that he could just get more freedom for himself. Christians were happy for him everywhere. He said that his journey to America was all for good. Because of his illness and his relationship with the Owens, he stayed with America. And he also thought, if he were to ever go back, what is he going to do over there? He's been in America for far too long. What's going on with his family? Are they alive? Are they dead? He doesn't know any of that information. So it was better for him to stay in America. His faith in Allah protected him. Allah gave him a long life. Most slaves were not getting a life that long because of how badly everyone was being abused and handled. And I feel for everybody that had suffered through slavery. But I'm just saying, having faith, everything that God does for you, He's showing a piece of your history to the people in the future that God is capable. Because if God wasn't able, we would all not be free or even be here or be talking to each other at all. But it's because of the Black excellence. It's the Black people who had faith, strong faith that they would make it out. And it really did happen. And also, for God to bring the Quran into America in a language where they wouldn't understand, and they preserved it because they didn't understand it and they thought it was cool. They preserved that. They kept that somewhere. And I was looking into it, and they were saying like a copy was lost, and somewhere in the Middle East, someone has a copy of his memoir, I believe. But it's amazing to me that he was able to write his own story and they didn't understand anything. And if they did, if the white man did understood what he was writing, we would not hear about his story. But Allah is so great. He preserved it. He made sure everyone knew his story. And I suppose that most people do hear about it because the majority of the population is asleep. But most of these other people, they're not asleep, so they know about him. It's not about the fact that, he was a slave. It's that look at what God was able to do for him. And the fact that God brought Islam with him to the new country. And a lot of people don't even know that Islam means peace. Allah does not promote violence. Unless you're being oppressed, yes, you can defend yourself. But anyways, I share this story because it's amazing how God provides for you when you ask him to provide for you. And God protected him and gave him a long life. And that's just, it's amazing. And now, me, as a young woman in America growing up, I got to hear his story. I got to learn about him. I learned about him. That's powerful because I've been through a journey where I was asleep. And now God is telling me that there were people here in this country before you who went through it and they made it out and they're okay. And I hope that God grants him the highest of paradise, the highest form of paradise. He deserves the highest Jannah. May Allah grant him that. May he be forgiven for doing anything wrong if he has. That's all I wish him for. And that's all for today. I really wanted to share that story, and I really loved that story. And I'm going to continue to learn more about Black African Americans who were Muslim here in the United States, because I just want to know the amazing stories that people have had to share. That's all. Bye. Hi. So I said that he did a form of Hajj, and it was, preaching, and it's not violence. That was a mistake. I do not know how to edit that out, so I'm making another audio to fix that. I really did mean that he did jihad. He spread the Islamic message. I meant he did jihad, and he did it through preaching. That's what I meant. I apologize in advance, but yeah.